socialist market economy, and then the Th national congresses put forward equal enjoyment of national treatment. This is just a document. Ownership superstition has become the main obstacle to the transformation of national motivation, as it prevents the country from directly participating in the economy and competing for the interests of the people, and also provides opportunities for departmental interests to the representative functional departments of the national machinery, hindering the upgrading of the national version. The coexistence and common development of multiple forms of ownership is the economic foundation for achieving political power differentiation, and also the basis for effectively defining the power and responsibility of the state, society, and individuals. The awkwardness of the non-public articles has already proven the predicament of private capital. In view of this, the most committed step of the purification of national motivation came on the scene, which is the most controversial: judicial independence. It is precisely because of the above problems that the motivation of judicial independence is doubted. The biggest mistake is the understanding of the concept of the state. So far, the analysis in this paper shows that the state has gone beyond the scope of the class conflict violence machine and represents the general concept of all the people. In this case, judicial independence has become a means of balancing various functional departments within the state machine. Instead of being independent of the state machine, it threatens the operation of the state machine itself and brings endless internal strife, increases transaction costs, and reduces the efficiency of the state machine. So if a country breaks away from the superstition of ownership, it will not hinder the implementation of the principles of fairness and justice due to its own interests. It will also make mutual checks and balances within the state machinery, such as judicial independence, inevitable, and the state's motives will not be distorted and become the cause of conflicts of interest. The foundation of a harmonious society can only be considered settled. Concept-era business opportunities are experienced just as the Chinese people are complacent about the national policy of family planning, which has resulted in 400 million fewer births in China. The aging population has advanced by 23%. 10 years will come. At the end of 2006, the population of elderly people aged 60 and above in China reached 149 million. Experts predict that it will reach 325 million by 2030, accounting for 21.9% of the total population. The typical 4+2+1, where a young couple has to support 4 elderly people and 1 child family structure, structural shortage of labor force, and insufficient social security income are the numerous challenges brought about by aging, which force structural adjustments at all levels of society. And the most crucial one is the transformation of thinking mode under the transition of old and new. The older generation thinks with the left brain. The left brain belongs to logic, rationality, utilitarianism, personal experience, analysis and calculation. The brain processes information in a time-dependent, sequential, and either-or directed manner. Therefore, The left brain almost represents the rule, institutionalization, standardization and mass production, which is just in line with the rules of the industrial age, bringing about the efficiency of collectivism, and also making focusing on big things and pragmatism the most typical way of thinking of the left brain. From the rule of holding chopsticks in the right hand, the arrangement of multiple choice questions on machine reading cards, to the efficiency of Fordism and the scientific worship of industrial civilization. The products under left brain thinking almost control the past. And in that year generation, left brain control has its inevitability. Firstly, in the early stages of industrialization, the market's ability to allocate resources was weak, and it could only rely on administrative means to concentrate efforts on major tasks to achieve national street rateages. Secondly, the accumulation of primitive capital relies on careful calculation, rationality rather than sensibility, science rather than intuition, and the consolidation of the foundation of the real economy through standardized production based on efficiency rather than the construction of a utopia. Therefore, industrial civilization itself is a civilization dominated by the left brain, and rationality and science are the two of them great magic weapon. But now the situation has made the premise of the era of left brain control gradually fade. Firstly, see computerization, miniaturization, financial explosion. On July Margaret Thatcher launched a large-scale financial reform. This reform not only has had a significant impact on the traditional financial system in the UK and has also had a significant impact on the development of the global financial industry, known as the financial explosion. The Big Bang quickly triggered a wave of global financial liberalization. During this period, the core content of the financial industry reform was the liberalization of the financial services industry, the elimination of brokers and traders, the regulation that the two functions of trading cannot be mutually exclusive, with brokers and exit agents serving simultaneously, and the restrictions on the membership of exchanges being relaxed. Cancel the minimum fixed commission limit for securities trading and implement the liberalization of securities trading agency fees. Remove the restriction on non-financial explosion and personality splitting. Greenspan's memoir The Age of Turbulence came out at a delicate moment. The real estate bubble burst. The subprime crisis is spreading. The answers to irrational behaviors found in the book from the perspective of psychology and anthropology, while they are ultimately rooted in human nature. The tendency to turn from excitement to fear has not only become the best footnote to this crisis, but more importantly, it also inadvertently revealed that although Greenspan has been in charge of the Federal Reserve, which represents the authority of rationality, for years, his heart is full of fear for irrationality and powerlessness for foam. What a great split this is! In fact, when it comes to human personality, most people will believe in its innate and unchanging characteristics. But from agriculture, the evolution of the three-character classic from the well-known concept of human nature is inherently good at the beginning. Similar in nature, but far apart inhabits to the industrial civilization's concept of human nature is like jade, and both nature and emotions can be shaped undoubtedly. Y highlights the dynamic and malleable aspect of human nature. In other words, the production and lifestyle styles under different cultures play an extremely important role in shaping the character of people living in them. For example, in the agricultural economy, the production method of relying on the weather for food and the exchange method of physical objects such as gold and silver as general equivalents bring about a social civilization characterized by honest labor and self-restraint, accompanied by the mechanized production mode of the industrial economy, and the exchange method of currency, paper currency, as the general equivalent. There has been a great expansion of human subjectivity, distortion caused by a single working method, and diversification brought about by the symbolization of value standards. Human personality has also become rich and complex. With the accelerated evolution of civilization, the evolution of this personality that originally belonged to several generations is becoming increasingly concentrated, shrinking to a generation, especially in the short span of nearly half a century. Information civilization and financial civilization have successively arrived, and profound changes in production and lifestyle, as well as various new features, are all impacting people's original thinking habits and behavioral concepts, and even subtly changing people's personalities themselves. Firstly, a major characteristic of financial civilization is irrational prosperity. From the price-to-earnings ratio to the market dream ratio, which refers to don't focus on performance or value principles, just dream-like growth expectations. For example, the stock price of LMZ, which is mainly engaged in toothpaste, once soared to yuan, because its holding of about % shares of CITIC securities gave people huge is a false proposition, and its arrogance violates the great taboo in the Qianji horse racing. Who would use their own bad horses to confront the rise of developed countries? The core of the national financial strategy is to take a distinctive differentiated path, give full play to the asymmetric advantage of resources, and avoid path dependence to turn air supremacy into self-destructive power. The characteristic of the theory of financial original sin is to deconstruct the new economic civilization based on the qualitative analysis of the times, and to address the confusion in the state of order, conduct holographic full-dimensional research on various variables, attempting to find regular factors and provide new analytical coordinates for solving complex situations. In view of this, the Fokker think tank believes that finance is a comprehensive manifestation of, although it has been proven that the skyrocketing stock index and the instantaneous expansion of market value are not sustainable. Whether it is a securities investment base, the number and scale of institutional investors such as gold, QFII, and QDII, as well as the billions of individual investors, as well as the financial asset equivalent that accounts for half of the stock market, and the degree of securitization of state-owned assets. all indicate that China's economy is undergoing sustainable and irreversible structural changes. The capital market is becoming one of the most important wealth management platforms for governments, enterprises, and individuals. And China is shifting from commodities. The era has entered an exciting era, the era of capital finance. In China's capital and finance sector experienced unprecedented explosive growth. WTH, the Shanghai Composite Index, has increased from multiple points. It has long been among the lowest among major economies. The situation where the added value of the financial industry in countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and China accounts for more than 7% has never occurred in Germany present. In 2017, the added value of German-wise financial industry accounted for only 4% of GDP, respectively, compared to the same period in the United States and the United Kingdom. This proportion is 3.6 and 3 percentage points lower. In 2019, the proportion further decreased to 3.9%. The analysis in the book is very important because it clarifies the relationship between finance and the real economy, and proposes that the finance department is a department that does not engage in material production. Its function is only to serve the transformation of capital forms. Therefore, the cost of maintaining this department constitutes the pure circulation cost of social production. Obviously, the lower the cost, the better. It is also evident that the lower the cost of this department, the better. After discussing the financial side of financial services for the real economy, we also need to discuss the enterprises of this proposition side. We see that the topic of whether finance serves the real economy in Germany seems to be less hyped than we do here. When we think carefully, in developed economies this issue is far from being as frequently on the headlines and some at times even attracting high-level attention as we do here. The fundamental reason is that the development funds of enterprises in developed economies do not rely too heavily on external financing. This situation is clearly in line with modern corporate finance theory, or rather modern corporate finance theory is fundamentally distilled from the corporate practices of developed economies. According to this theory, the financing channels and methods of enterprises can be divided into internal financing, profit accumulation, and external financing. External financing can be further divided into two categories: equity financing and debt financing. The rational financing priority for enterprises is endogenous financing, debt financing, and equity financing. So we see that endogenous financing dominates in mature developed economies. Data shows that the leverage ratio of enterprises in developed economies has always remained at a relatively low level. The leverage ratio of Japanese enterprises in developed economies was the highest at 117.7 in 2000, and it had dropped to 101.6% at the end of 2019. The leverage ratio of American enterprises was lower than that of developed economies at 64.1% in 2000, and gradually climbed to 75.5% 8.7% at the end of 2019. The leverage ratio of German enterprises in developed economies was the lowest at 58.8% in 2000, and it only slightly increased to 59.1% at the end of 2019, with little change. It is obvious that if there is still much gap between China's economic system and developed economies, the financing structure of the financial crisis has not yet bottomed out. But no one mentions currency wars anymore, as they are considered war dollars in the book. The murderous and behind-the-scenes Wall Street tycoons died before they got out, while most of the survivors sold themselves to the government, were denationalized, and even did transsexual surgery to return to the bank to survive. The expected market of painful shearing by the crisis did not happen, which made people obsessed with explaining the financial crisis with conspiracy theory very frustrated. Did investment banks die of mass suicide? Just as currency war itself is a specious rumor strung together with bizarre conspiracies, even such a book is rumored to be a copycat version because the original version comes from the United States. However, the views in the book perfectly match the needs of those who have suffered heavy losses due to misjudgment of the situation, as dressing themselves as victims of uncertainty is more likely to gain sympathy. Therefore, as soon as this book was published, it was highly sought after and appeared at high-level financial seminars, serving as a shield against pressure. However, with the passage of time, the currency war has no effect on the overall situation, and it is still not eloquent enough to be used for casual conversation after meals. The essence of the financial crisis is money surplus, but in the conspiracy theory, money can be controlled unilaterally and completely. The six major families behind the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve control the situation, using cunning tactics to influence currency flows and earn large amounts of money, in order to achieve their goals by killing people and Buddha. However, the most fatal flaw of this logic is that the government and the six major families do not have the control they expected. They may have controlled the currency within the banking system. Once the currency flows out, it is not only difficult to track but also repeatedly transforms into capital and hot money. What is even more terrifying is that during this process the scale of the currency continues to expand. The expansion ability continues to improve, and speculative models are extensively replicated, creating a vast amount of money, book assets or liabilities registered on the balance sheets of financial institutions are in reality dependent on the price of resources and assets. The contradiction between the leveraged expansion of monetary capital and the limitation of the price rise of assets and resources will automatically close positions under the law of value. Obviously, this is the original sin of self-expansion and self-evaporation in finance. So on the one hand, the runaway of currency falsify the possibility of a holistic and long-term monetary conspiracy. On the other hand, the automatic liquidation of currency has falsified the possibility of a century-long and shocking conspiracy. Of course, it is not ruled out that